Good evening from PLUGHITZ Studios in Largo, Florida. I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we are here with episode 497 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, for April 15th, 2018. This show is a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. This week, Apple wants employees to stop talking, Google wants to stop forgetting, and the FTC wants YouTube to stop tracking. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music Podcasts, the Podcast Play app in the Windows Store, a myriad of other podcatchers, on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, our live stream partners, livestream.com, Mixer, Periscope, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live, or of course on our apps, PLUGHITZlive.com/apps. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is by joining us live Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern for about an hour by going to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in our chat room, in a number of chat rooms, and let us know what you're thinking about the topics as we're talking about them. We always like to hear your feedback, especially about the Pilch Point, which will be on in just a little bit. We'll be talking about kids' robots. If you're not able to join us live, that is okay. You can also subscribe to our shows by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you will see all of our shows, including F5 Live and the Pilch Point, our special events feed, which has stuff from, I guess right now our last event was CES. We'll have Synapse published soon, and then at the end of the month we will be at Collision in New Orleans, and all of that will show up under special events. Our first looks, which is about school-age robotics, which fits in pretty well with Avram's topic in a little while. All of those and more are available at PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. Avram, how has your week been?
Long and stressful. But, you know, some good spots. It's my son's birthday. We had a big birthday party for him yesterday. So, you know, it was cool. Just a lot going on at Laptop and Tom's Guide.
Sure.
As we prepare the Best and Worst Brands feature, which will be going live this week. Best and Worst Laptop Brands, I should say. We've been doing it for 9 or 10 years now. It's a big deal. And everybody tune in, check out our site around Thursday, say Thursday afternoon. Go to laptopmag.com and you can see, you should be able to see our Best and Worst Brands article, which will tell you who won. The winner isn't necessarily what matters. It's you want to know how each brand did and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And
Sure.
We cover the top 10 brands and give each report card. So see how your favorite brand did.
Very cool. As our regulars know, it is one of my favorite features of the year from you guys. I always like to see how they're doing, especially compared to last year. Like their change. Have people gotten better? Have companies gotten worse? That kind of thing.
There have been some changes for sure. I'll tell you that. All
right. That seems like an interesting tease. I cannot wait for Thursday afternoon now. Around here, it's kind of been business as usual. Obviously, getting ready for Collision. That's always a big event for us. It's our second biggest event of the year behind CES. Interestingly, if we fill our schedule this year, we will actually produce more content at Collision than at CES, which terrifies me. Because I've only got 2 of us on air for, I think we're doing 8 or 9 hours a day. We're going to be dead. But it's okay, because it's going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking at the companies who have been hitting the schedule. There are going to be a lot of interesting topics. We're going to be talking about charitable giving, seemingly a lot. I think I've seen 3 or 4 different charity-based organizations, so that should be interesting. But I'm definitely looking forward to that. Like I said, you guys can follow along with all of the stuff for Collision. Actually, we've got a domain this year to make it easy. It's collision.live. That's where we will be live. It seems pretty simple to me. So follow along there. That will be at the end of the month, April 30th, and then May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Our team's really looking forward to that. And I guess with that, how about we get into some news, Avram?
Great.
This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a laptop, a tablet, a phone, even the new Galaxy S9, you're looking for virtual reality headsets, the HTC Vive, or any of the Windows Mixed Reality, or a new Xbox One. All of it is available now with a number of deals, including $150 off on the Surface Book 2, $200 off on certain models of the Surface Pro. You can get some free games if you buy a new Xbox, and then up to $400 off a variety of laptops. All available by going to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So, we've talked, Avram and I have talked on the show in the past about, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how Apple had, for the first time in a long time, managed to get analysts confused, to not quite know what was coming. Some of it we talked about was because of the fact that we weren't sure that they necessarily knew what was coming, because this whole generation of phones really threw them off. Their sales have been unpredictable even to them, it seems. And then the HomePod has been even more so. They couldn't have predicted that there would be almost no demand for that. But we also talked about the fact that there's been way less information coming out of Apple unofficially, just in the last couple of months. And as it turns out, that might be because Apple has cracked down on internal leaking. Interestingly, in what I believe to be the irony of the week, a leaked internal memo from Apple discusses their crackdown and repercussions for leaking internal information. Now, I don't know that this will necessarily fall under that category, but they talked about that the company in the last year has caught 29 leakers, all of whom theoretically have been fired, and 12 of them have ended in arrests, which is fascinating. Now, in the last year, we did see leaked iOS code come out of the company. And so my guess is most, if not all, of those arrests surround actually leaking product, like, patented information, like the code for iOS. So I don't know that for sure, but it seems pretty reasonable to me. Obviously, Avram, keeping information internal can be important. You don't want people consciously knowing that you're working on a replacement to the thing they're thinking about buying today, because that can negatively affect sales today.
You're talking about the famous Osborne effect, which Apple seems to do a good job of trying to avoid, but a lot of other companies are more than happy to Osborne themselves all the time. So for those who aren't familiar, in the 80s, there was a company called Osborne Computer. They made this is what the really early computing days, like in 81, 82, 83, when it wasn't even clear that like IBM PC-based, MS-DOS-based computers were going to win. And so there was this company named Osborne Computer, and they were showing around their computers. These, mind you, the computers in those days, they were $3,000 and $4,000 in 1982 dollars. So, very, very expensive. And they had something like, I forget the exact details, but they had like a Model 2, or when they were showing it around, the salesman would say, "Oh yeah, but just wait for our Model 3 that's going to be even better." They lost so many sales from people saying, "You know what, I'm just going to wait for the better model," that I think it caused them to go out of business. So so definitely, if there is a product that you knew a better one was going to come out, in a relatively short period of time, you'd wait, unless you really need one now.
Right.
If you're an iPhone owner and you drop your iPhone and it breaks in half, does it matter to you that in 2 months there's going to be a new iPhone? You're not going to live 2 months without a phone, so you got to get one now. But let's say a very more common situation. I got my iPhone and it's a little long in the tooth, and I'm thinking of upgrading soon. And then I hear, hey, in 2 or 3 months there's going to be something much better coming. I'll wait my 2 or 3 months.
Sure.
So I think that's a common situation for sure. But keep in mind that while Apple is really good about keeping these things a secret, we've had many companies show us things very publicly, and then not come out with them for a few months.
Right.
I mean, one thing you can say about Apple is it's almost always the case that when they announce something, it's ready to ship. They almost never announce something and then, oh yeah, this is coming in a few months. That was the case with the iPhone X, however, the iPhone 10. Sorry, iPhone 10. When they announced in September, it didn't start shipping till November. So like a few 6 weeks, month and a half, 2 month wait. But I bring your attention to CES, where we saw a whole slew of stuff, some of which just came out 2 weeks ago.
Right.
I mean, we saw a whole bunch of new ThinkPads. They only first started coming out mid-February, beginning of March, some of them. Well, if you were going to buy one in January, really the best advice was to wait. If same thing, you could say the same thing about, if you were shopping for a 2-in-1, maybe you'd want that XPS 15 2-in-1. Well, it was announced at CES, but it didn't come out until 2 weeks ago. So, there's certainly a lot of things on the market where, in the PC world anyway, where they get announced and then they don't ship right away. But Apple usually does like to ship around the time that they announce, which is good for them. I want to pose a little conspiracy theory to you, though.
Okay.
What if the leaked memo was leaked on purpose?
Oh, almost certainly.
What if Apple wants that out there?
Almost certainly that's the case. Because I think they want on top of their employees knowing that there are repercussions, I think they want the journalists to know that there are repercussions for the employees.
And maybe they want the world to know that they're cracking down.
Sure.
The other thing is, again, how do we know that all of the leaks that have occurred were done by nefarious employees and none of them were planted purposefully? Like, obviously, iOS code or something like that, they wouldn't want out there in the wild.
Right.
But all this rampant speculation about what the next iPhone is going to be, don't you think that's good for them?
Yes, I think.
I mean, the certainty, if there was a certainty and they announced it and stuff, then maybe that would Osborne their products. But this rampant speculation that goes on all year long about what the next iPhone, and half the stuff is just magical fantasy stuff.
Of course.
Like, I mean, truth be told, they don't have to release anything. They don't need to leak anything because people will start coming up with stuff out of whole cloth.
Sure.
And calling it an Apple rumor. So, and some of them will be correct just just like, if you lock a monkey in a room with a typewriter, eventually they'll write Shakespeare or something. Like, obviously someone will eventually get something right, even if they don't know anything. But, I don't think this rumor business is all bad for Apple. I think it's mostly good for Apple, but they obviously like to keep a tight ship. And I feel like more stuff is coming out under Tim Cook than was coming out under Steve Jobs. Because Steve Jobs was I've never worked at Apple, so I don't know, but Steve Jobs seems like he was a real, like, you don't want to get on his bad side.
Yeah, there's the famous story about the iPhone 4 being chucked across the room at the designers because they didn't bring him a shade of white that he liked.
Right. So, maybe you're more afraid to leak when you have that guy running a company than a seemingly nice guy like Tim Cook.
For sure.
But
I think I'm with you on that.
But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think I think that this is almost certainly leaked on purpose. I think you're right that some of the stuff that comes out is probably done by corporate because they're trying to keep that speculation going so that their name is always in the press and not just coming and going. But when it's things like photos of the chassis and things like that, when those things start coming out, or well, this is what the camera hole looks like when like legitimate, these are photos of a thing, start coming out. I think that's when they start to panic. And of course, when they have source code leaked. As soon as you have source code out there, it starts to become a whole lot easier to jailbreak or create unofficial ROMs, because you know how they store the operating system on the phone, and that's no good for Apple. They went to court with the Justice Department to keep that stuff private to make sure that wasn't possible. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that's the kind of stuff, almost certainly that's the kind of stuff they're trying to keep a handle on. This week's Pilch Point with Avram Pilch is proudly powered by Monster Products. The headphones on my head right now, the Monster DNAs, the headphones that I usually wear, the Monster Elements, or a whole variety of in-ear, on-ear, and over-the-ear, corded and cordless, Bluetooth and sport speakers, from the little S100 to the big S400, and of course the Monster Blaster, and all the cables and power to connect them, all available by going to pilchpoint.live/monster. And Avram, you have got one of our favorite things to talk about and to show off this week: robots.
Yes. So, this week was my son's birthday, and he's been obsessed with robots lately, like programming robots. And it occurs to me that, like, not every parent gives their kid as much access to robots as I give to my son. And it occurred to me when, his friends came over for his birthday party, and they're like, "Oh, where are the robots Isaac tells us all about?" So,
I love that.
I want to, actually, they looked and they saw my home office, and they're like, "Is that where Isaac and his father build the robots?" Anyway, so, so for parents out there, we maintain at tomsguide.com a list of robot kits for kids, but I wanted to bring on a couple of examples and talk about what to look for. So, one thing you got to decide if you're a parent is not decide. You got to know when you're deciding on what robot to get is how old is your child and how well do they read. Um, because it is very possible to teach a child to program, or the principles of programming anyway, before they can read. Um, and one of the best kits for that is the Lego Boost kit, which my son, loves, because there's absolutely no language whatsoever in the app. There's no words. It's all pictures. The code is pictures. The instructions are pictures. There's not one single written word in the entire app. So that's good. Now, my son is in kindergarten. He's just now learning the basics of reading. But a few months ago, a robot called the Dot crossed my desk. It's been on the market a little while. It's from a company called Wonder Workshop. They came out. There are a couple versions of the Dot. One is just a blue ball, and one is green. And then the green one comes with some like little plastic things you could put on it to decorate. And I thought that this robot was like, it doesn't roll. It basically has an eye. It talks. It talks. It can't move at all, but it has an accelerometer sensor and like a sound sensor, so you can program it to do, to say things or light up different colors when you press its buttons or shake it or whatever. And I was like, is he gonna really like this? And the app had a lot of words in it. You can't fully appreciate or really even partially appreciate the app if you can't read. And at first, I was going through all the programming challenges with him, dragging and dropping stuff, showing him, and I figured, we got through a bunch of challenges. I was like, this isn't too exciting. He's not going to want it. He's not going to want to keep playing with it. And boy, was I wrong. He became obsessed with it, and he learned how to do a lot of programming things with it, and keep doing them, because whether he could read them all or not, he's really good at memorizing where things are in an interface and what they should look like. And so I was really impressed with that. And then for his birthday, he was for weeks talking about how he wanted the more advanced robot that Wonder Workshop makes, or one of the more advanced robots Wonder Workshop makes, this one right here, which is called the Dash. So the Dot, which I have somewhere around here, but couldn't find to bring on here, it's just like this top piece. It's just the ball up here with the eye. The Dash adds these three bottom balls because it has wheels, and it can roll around, and the head can turn. And it has a sensor, like an IR sensor in the back. And you can program it to roll around, to say things, to move its head, all kinds of things you can do with it. Now, what's interesting is there are some expansion kits which we got him. This is one right here that's attached to it. This is the catapult. So you attach the catapult. There's a little ball. It comes with a couple of balls, and then when you program the robot to do this, to move its head back, and it'll shoot things. And he loves that.
No kidding.
The other thing he really likes, which is a little big for me to bring over here in my office, is it has a xylophone. So you attach the xylophone here, and you attach a mallet to its head, and it like moves its head up and down, and it plays songs on the xylophone.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So he really loves this robot, and I thought, man, you're gonna need to be a little bit more like of a reader and literate, but he picked it up right away. And there's a huge ecosystem for this Dot and Dash robot. There's like 8 different apps for it, which allow you to program it in different forms of programming. Like, one is a block-based language. The other, I mean, they're all dragging and dropping, but and he's tried them. He's tried them all. He's programmed and he's tried one that's called Blockify, and you drag around with blocks. And he's tried the default Wonder Workshop one that it comes with, and all kinds of stuff. So I really have to say, because it's so engaging, this would make a good robot for a kid who's maybe on the cusp of reading, 5 to 7, maybe a little older, even maybe 8 or 9. This is a great choice. And this one is the Dash itself is $150, but the Dot is about $60. So It's a lot less expensive if you want to do that for getting them started. Now, um, over here, I have a robot for older kids, a little bit older. Maybe you got to be at least, I would say, probably 10 to really appreciate it. Isaac and I built this one together, um, but it's the programming language is a lot more complicated. There's a lot more text in it, whatever. This is one of the many Ubitech Jimu robots. Ubitech makes a whole bunch of these kits that are sort of like Legos, but they're not Legos, and you put things together. This one here I like the best. This is the least expensive one too. It's called the Builder Bot, and I think it's about $89 or $99 depending on where you get it and if it's on sale. And it allows you to build a couple of different things. This is one, this like construction vehicle here. It's got treads and moves around. This eye here actually lights up in different LED colors. You can program that, and it has an IR sensor, so you can sort of program it to go around and not bump into things. And of course, it has this claw, and you can program it to pick things up. So really cool. But this one doesn't have the app doesn't have the level of tutorials and hand holding that say the apps for Lego Boost and for the Wonder Workshop robots have. This one is a bit more advanced, and the building process definitely, you definitely either want a parent to help or you want a kid who's like at least 10 years old for that. But for an older kid, this is better because it's going to be more complex and challenge them more. So those are just a few robot kits to consider. The Lego Boost the Lego Boost, this, the Dash, the Dot, which is a less expensive version that doesn't move, and then the Ubitech Jimu robots, which I showed you, the Builder Bot, are all good choices for kids of different ages.
Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Okay, so the Dash, I don't know why, but when I was looking it up a couple of weeks ago when we mentioned it in passing, I had it in my head that it was way smaller than that.
I think maybe you're thinking of the Dot, which is only the head. Basically, the Dot is only a ball.
Well, I had it in my head that all of the spheres were physically smaller, which I think the size that it actually is way better than what was in my head. So,
yeah, no, it's I don't know how to describe it for the audience, but you can see the scale sort of next to my head.
That's that's a good size. I like that.
I think that's a good size for kids' robot rolling around the floor. It's not so small you're gonna like accidentally step on it,
which is important.
Yeah, no doubt.
Especially if you've got a kid like Isaac who would be obviously would be devastated to have that broken.
Yeah, he'll be upset. He was really obsessed with it, until he finds a more complex robot. But for now, it was amazing to me how much he played with the other one. I was like, well, all you can do is make it light up different colors, whatever. But I think the fact that these robots have sort of a cute personality really does have an impact. So me looking at it as an adult through adult eyes, I didn't see the appeal as much as he did. So
sure, that makes sense. But we've talked in the past about the idea that it lights up and that might be enough.
Yeah.
We've talked a couple of times in our Razer promo about their Chroma system. And it's adults programming lights. Sure, the lights are in your keyboard and in your mouse and maybe in an LED strip around your thing, and now the Philips Hue can tie into it. But that's just like a grown-up version of being able to program lights.
These are more than, I didn't get too into this, but these are a little bit more than just programmable robots. They are programmable robots, but what I mean is when they do some things independently, like when you turn them on first, they'll say things like, "What? Where am I?" And if you leave it on, it starts talking to you about different things. So it's, it's got a little bit of a personality.
That's cool.
I find the personality. I find the fact that a robot would have. This is real old school to me, but I find the idea of sort of social companion robots like that a little creepy. But kids love them, and a lot of people love them. So, you know, it's it has that sort of little cute stuff to it. And then when you're older, you're like, I don't need this. Just give me a tool to program. But when you're my son's age, you find it very appealing.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And you said that you guys maintain a list
Yeah, so
of
we
the best?
have a list. We have a list which I have to update further, but these I believe all these are on the list. If you go to tomsguide.com, we have a list of best robot kits for kids.
Fantastic. Well, always love seeing the robots and the things that you have in your office. I'm right there with the kids. I'm always excited to see the stuff that you've got going on in your office.
I can't deny I do enjoy seeing cool stuff.
It's definitely the best part of the job. getting to play with new stuff.
No doubt.
Well, thanks a lot for showing those off, Avram.
Oh, always a pleasure.
This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Razer. All of the accessories you need to up your gaming experience on your PC or on consoles. Right now, we've got a deal that's running at least through the weekend. I don't know how much longer. Where if you buy any two peripherals, you can get 10% off if you use the promo code SPRING10. And accessories are not just little things like a mouse pad. We're talking about saving 10% on a $200 keyboard, and basically not computers is what we're talking. There's a lot of featured keyboards and mice and things like that available, and of course there's a lot more than just that from Razer. You've got headsets, and you've got controllers, you've got full laptops, webcams, and the new Razer phone, and all of that is available by going to f5live.tv/Razer. So, when it comes to video game high scores, there's probably a particular name that most people know, and that is because of the documentary that followed him, The King of Kong, and it's Billy Mitchell. He was the first person recorded to hit over 1 million points on Donkey Kong. He has since theoretically done it a couple of times, twice during the documentary, and he's also had high scores for Pac-Man. And a couple of months ago, the website Donkey Kong Forum, which is one of the 3 places that maintains high scores for that particular game, received some information about his high score about his 1 million point video. And so they went and investigated, and as painful as this sounds, they went through sections of the video frame by frame, looking for inconsistencies. And what they found was that in transitions from level to level, there was artifacting. If you don't know what that means, it means that some of the visuals from like the first level, when you're going from level 1 to level 2, right? You've got the level, and then it goes to the little animation just in the center of the screen, and then it goes back to level 2. So if you take that into consideration, when it transitions from 1 to that center animation, there'd be little pieces, maybe just little pixels here and there, of level 1 left behind. Now, why is that important? Because the arcade machine never did that. There was no artifacting in the original arcade machine because the way the video was handled was very different. Printed circuit. It was all very specific. So everything went directly to the video card. So that suggested to them that he had actually used an emulator, MAME in particular, which is the multiple arcade machine emulator. Now, why is that important? Because high scores have to be performed on the actual arcade machines. Since then, the organization Twin Galaxies went and did their own investigation. Donkey Kong Forum pulled down all of his high scores and said they were invalid. And then Twin Galaxies, who is like basically the official platform, went and did their own investigation, also agreed that it was probably MAME, but then also believed that the footage might be cut together from multiple runs, and they pulled down all of his high scores. Now, there's two of our three. Number 3 is Guinness. Guinness, unfortunately for him, Guinness uses Twin Galaxies as their verification service for most video game stuff, and so he lost his scores there too. Now, why is this important? It's important because we're seeing competitive gaming starting to really gain some traction. And to ignore the roots of competitive gaming would be insane, right? Like, to not know where football came from would, in the early days of football, might make the enjoyment of it bizarre, or may make it more likely that people would cheat. And in this case, that's why this topic is important, is because as we're getting, competitive gaming is, it's on TBS. It's on television. It's hit the mainstream at this point. It's important to know that, people have cheated, and it's being taken seriously by the organizations that are in charge. And I think that's a good thing, as things like E-League, which is the organization that's teamed up with Turner for TBS, start to really gain some popularity. I think it's important to know that it's going to be treated seriously, like any other sport. What do you think, Avram?
Obviously important. What I question is, why did they accept a video from him in the first place?
That was how it was always done. Yeah, it didn't have to be done live, because there were certain things that could be done to verify. Now, these scores, the original one is from 2007. So obviously the ability to verify has even gotten better in the last 11 years. And so here we are. And they went back and re-verified, and they're like, yep, you know what? We were wrong. So that's the reason why they accepted the video. Apparently it's just the way it's done. Or maybe was done. May not be that way anymore.
I'm just, when I first heard about the story, I was so surprised that people, I guess it just shows my ignorance of the space, that people were so into high scores in Donkey Kong and Pac-Man in 2018.
Well, the idea that a game, maybe even particularly a game that old, where there were glitches, right? None of those games were ever perfect. They were close, but none of them were ever perfect. The idea that there could be a perfect score, because there's an end to the game. The idea that there could be such a thing as a perfect score drives people to be intrigued by that ever elusive perfect score.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? It's something that I hadn't thought about until I started looking into this kind of stuff a number of years ago. You see two types of people in the space playing really old games. You see people looking for that elusive high score or a perfect score, or you see people doing speed runs who have figured out all the little, intricacies of the game and can get through it quickly, not necessarily caring about the score, but simply trying to clear, which I think is just as fascinating. Actually makes for more interesting watching for me, but
I still haven't totally gotten the watching people play games trend. I know that esports are really big, but if you're going to do that, at least let it be a game that's like, has some really interesting content in it. I mean, these games weren't meant to be played for the amount of time that people are playing them. They were meant to get you to pump some quarters in until you ran out and had to go home. I mean,
that's for sure.
They weren't meant like today when you have games, they have like a beginning, a middle, and an end, like a movie. And
sure,
if it's a home game, after a certain number of hours you're going to reach the end. And if it's still in an arcade, if you could pump in, just stay there for hours and pump in a million quarters, you would also win. So
true.
But back in the early 80s, they didn't have that as a concept.
Right.
The games were supposed to basically go on until you had no more money to spend on them.
And theoretically, nobody would make it to the halfway point of the level algorithm for something like, say, Pac-Man, which visually most people can see the Pac-Man board in their head. The thing that generated those levels was consistent, but, they didn't think that anybody would make it to the halfway point, which is why it was algorithm driven the way that it was. They figured, you'd run out of lives, you'd put some more quarters in, it's sitting at a Pizza Hut or an arcade or wherever it is, and eventually you run out of quarters and you move on. They certainly never expected that here we'd be sitting 35 years later, 35, 48, 35 years later, that's what I thought, talking about knowing what the end of that algorithm looks like and being able to get to it without losing a single point.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which I think makes it that idea more compelling. I may not be able to watch it. Like, that's not the kind of thing I'd be intrigued in watching. But from a statistical standpoint and from a software engineer standpoint, it's fascinating that people are like, I know there's an end to this. There's a place where this screen goes black and I'm going to get there.
Yeah, I would just want to watch a YouTube video of somebody having to the end of it.
The last 2 or 3 minutes, maybe.
Give me the last minute.
Yeah.
And therefore, it seems such a waste. Like, just get a cheat or something so you can see the end. But it's. But I gotta respect the dedication that people have to do this. And then, what kind of dedication must you have? I don't know. This is I don't want to be admiring this person, but
sure.
They cared so much that they were willing to cheat and put their reputation at risk. Is bizarre.
Absolutely. Now, interestingly, you mentioned reputation. So he is himself on one of the video game leaderboard boards, I guess, for lack of a better term. And so he posted a video today because I guess they're meeting. They just happen to be meeting today. And so he posted a video because the board suggested that he do. And it was interesting. He basically said that if this is how we're going to play this, I can play the game too, which is a bit of a chest thump, I think. But he suggested that maybe there's a lot more of this out there than either the forum or Twin Galaxies or even Guinness wants to admit. And it sounds like he's ready to do some exposing. So this story may be far from over, which is crazy. It's crazy. It was 11. First of all, it was 11 years ago, and second of all, the game is 35 years old. It's crazy that this story isn't over, and that he's basically threatening to expose the whole group. I can't wait to see what he's got. I don't know. It's the kind of thing like that sounds too crazy to be true, and I just can't not watch, I think, is what it comes down to. Anyway, we're going to keep following this because, like I said, this is too crazy not to. This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live is proudly powered by Riff Tracks. Make fun of movies or let the professionals do it for you. The way it usually works is for a couple of dollars, you download the MP3, play it along with your DVD, Netflix, Amazon, wherever the movie happens to exist, and laugh. They've got all kinds of films from blockbusters to dark future. I don't know what that is. So a whole variety of stuff you can enjoy that way, and from time to time they do live events. They've got some live events coming up soon. June 14th, they have Space Mutiny, which will be riffed live in theaters nationwide. And right now, there's always a deal of the week. It will expire sometime tomorrow, but it is Mutant. Save $2 off on Mutant right now, and a new one will start tomorrow. You can find the deal, all of the movies that are available, and find out what theaters the live event will take place in by going to f5live.tv/rifftracks with an X. You would think that since I have been doing that promo almost identical for like 6 years, that I would not have just choked on it, but here we are. Anyway, it happens. Let's talk about privacy. We talked about privacy last week, and for good reason. There's been a lot of talk about it. If you turned on any screen, it doesn't matter what screen you turned on this week, whether it be a phone, a computer, your television, you saw at least one picture of Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, speaking in front of Congress. You either saw it seriously or you saw him as Data from Star Trek, which was my favorite collection of images of him. I don't know about you, Avram, but I enjoyed that. But there are companies like Facebook that we willingly give information to. And then there are organizations like Google, which goes out and finds information on its own, both of which could theoretically affect you. We've seen college applicants lose scholarships and stuff because of Instagram photos. We've seen people lose out on jobs because of Facebook posts. So both of these can affect you. The second, not necessarily being your choice, and as such, the European Union a couple of years ago, and by that I think it was 2014, implemented something called the right to be forgotten. It was forced upon Google and implemented shortly after, willingly, before the EU even tried, by Microsoft and Yahoo. And basically, you could petition these companies to take information out of their search index about you, things that you felt affected you negatively. Now, it was inevitable that somebody was going to ask for something, and one of the companies was going to say no, and it was going to go to court. And it did. So in the UK, there was a suit filed, as anybody would have expected. In it, two men who are unnamed for privacy reasons, of course, since this is all about privacy, right? They are referred to as NT1 and NT2. They both asked Google to remove information about them, and Google said no, because the information that was being asked to be removed was public. It was information about arrests and convictions, which in the United States, like, I don't know about in New York where Avram is, but I can speak for our area here in Tampa. All of our counties have a way to search all of that information anyway. All of that stuff is public record, which is, of course, the reason why we see celebrity mugshots, because arrests are public information. And so they wanted Google to remove these arrests and convictions from their search index, and Google said, no, it's public information, absolutely not. They took it to court, and this week, a judge said that one of them could have their information removed and one of them not, which I think is fascinating.
Is it the same judge, or are these two different cases?
Same judge, same case, but the information being requested to be removed was different. In the case of NT1, it was in the 90s, and it was for conspiracy to account falsely. And NT2 was in the early 2000s for conspiracy to intercept communications. In this case, the judge believed that information about NT1 was of public interest and was denied, whereas NT2 was not. The main reason was whatever happened with NT2, whatever the conviction was, the judge said that it was unlikely to ever be repeated, whereas NT1, he believed that it was the kind of behavior that not only was likely to be repeated, but information that maybe an employer should have access to. But that's the kind of thing that's going to show up in a background check, not in a Google search. So it's all very strange. Obviously, there's no way it ends here.
Yeah, I mean, I see the issue here. So the question is this: should information be like the elevator inspection certificate, or should it be easily accessible?
Right.
Right? Like, you go into elevators, I don't know about you, most elevators, and living in New York, I see many elevators. And many of the elevators have a little sign in it. They used to actually put an inspection certificate in the elevator, so you could look and see that your elevator had been inspected. Not that not that anybody cares, because by the time you in riding the elevator, it's too late anyway. But now, the last few years, they always put elevator inspection certificate available upon request. Who's the stickler? Who's like, who's going to go to the front desk or wherever they must store these things, if they have it at all, and be like, listen, I'm not riding in any of your elevators until you show me the inspection certificate. Like, who has anyone ever done that? Who does that? So that's information that's public, right? It's available to the public, but it's not easily accessible to where you would actually like bother, right? To go do it. Google takes things that are public information, like somebody's arrest record, and makes them easily accessible.
Right.
So before the internet, and in many cases things that are not on the internet, it's a different story. If you have to go to some police department or wherever, you have to ask for arrest record. First of all, you wouldn't necessarily know which one to go to, right? True. Like, there's a lot of flaws in the whole background check system, because, if you're a business or any entity and you're conducting a background check on someone, usually you're only calling the police or the county, whatever, in the places where this person has been, or the adjacent places or whatever. But if they flew over for the weekend to commit a crime out of state, you wouldn't find out.
True.
But if it made the newspaper or some other database, then Google will have it. Right. So I do feel bad for people who have done something wrong or something they're just embarrassed about, and it's always going to be there on it's always going to be there on Google. It's always going to be there on someone's website. Uh, but I think the real question is, why are you suing Google? Shouldn't you be suing whoever it is that? But no, you can't even. Like, you're going to sue the state for putting up that information.
Right.
Like, that's that's public information. It's an arrest record.
Mm-hmm.
They should not, in my opinion, neither of those things should have been excluded from Google. Now, I feel a little more sympathy for people who put up stupid stuff
Right.
and now can't get it out of Google. Like, you wrote some ridiculous stuff on a message board and it has your name attached to it that you wish you hadn't, or, you
Sure.
put up a ridiculous web page, you can't take it down now because it's gone or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
For years,
Because archive.org has got your old GeoCities website.
but they didn't sue GeoCities. They should sue the Wayback Machine before they sue Google, because Google will delist it if it's gone.
Right.
But these are things that are in the public, so they're not going to be gone.
Right.
Now, I also feel bad for the people who are arrested and not convicted of a crime, and they're arrested, innocent until proven guilty. But now, if I Google them, maybe I'll get a story about them being arrested.
Sure.
So, but you who do you blame there? I don't know if it's Google, because really you got to blame whoever published it. And once again, news stories are a snapshot in time. So you were arrested, that made the news. When the charges were dropped against you 2 weeks later, maybe it didn't make the news, or maybe it was a separate article.
Right.
So it doesn't rank as highly in search. So, it is unfortunate how search takes what used to be a difficult thing to get. Like, if you want to see if someone was in the news for something, good or bad, you used to have to go to the microfiche, right?
Sure.
You used to go to the library and go through the microfiche. Well, who's going to bother to do that? That's like asking for the elevator certificate. But, now it's so easy. If you are hiring someone for a job, or you're, considering going on a date with someone you saw on, on a dating site or whatever, the first thing you're going to do is Google them.
It's definitely pretty common.
In the near future, maybe not even the near future, maybe in the present, children will need to have media training. They will need to be trained not to say dumb things, not to say controversial things.
One of the companies we've invited to be on the show for Collision has a platform specifically for that.
For teaching kids not to post things?
Yes.
I'm fascinated. I got to hear about this after.
Absolutely. I'm hoping they'll be on the show. Hopefully they'll respond.
I'm fascinated because you're gonna, like, what we used to reserve for people who are showing up to be interviewed on TV. That kind of training we now have to give to young children who might go on the internet.
Absolutely. It is definitely an interesting thing. Obviously, the timing on this case coming to a conclusion is perfect, because there's been this renewed conversation about privacy online. And so, like I said earlier, it's very unlikely that this is the end of it. It seems like the NT2 is probably going to appeal, and Google is probably going to appeal on NT1. So this case is almost certainly not over, but it could create an interesting legal precedent for the UK at the very least, and maybe the European Union as a whole, because it creates a legal override So this will be, again, this is another interesting story. We'll definitely keep you posted on, because it may even end up with repercussions outside of the UK or the European Union. This week's DRM not included on F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. You know your normal benefits. You know you get free shipping, sometimes same day, sometimes 2 hour, depending on where you are and what you're ordering. But you may not know that you also get Amazon Prime Music, which is unlimited streaming of a couple million tracks, which is included in your subscription that you already have. Amazon Prime Video, which has a whole bunch of interesting video content and additional channels that you can add, like HBO and Showtime. You've got Twitch Prime, which now has 2 benefits. You get 1 free subscription on Twitch, and you get free video games just for being an Amazon Prime subscriber. And there's a number of other features as well. We've got a list of some of our favorites, and we've got a free 30-day trial if you're not already a Prime subscriber. And you can get all of that by going to f5live.tv/prime. So we'll stick with Google for a little bit and talk briefly about YouTube again. We've talked about the issues that YouTube has encountered recently. They've had policy confusion and enforcement changes, and there was the issue where non-kid-friendly content was showing up in YouTube Kids, just a whole variety of things. And this week, they have a new issue added to the YouTube brand with a collection of privacy groups petitioning the Federal Trade Commission to investigate what they believe to be willful ignoring of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, more commonly known as COPA. The law was passed in 1998 and revised and expanded in 2012, and essentially says that that a company cannot collect any information about a child without parental approval. Now, if you've ever signed up for a thing, any account online, you have likely been asked either for your date of birth or checked a little box that says you're 13 years of age or older. And that is because of this law in particular. So what they're claiming is that Google and YouTube are fully aware that children under 13 use YouTube on a regular basis, with or without an account, and they point to a number of things. First, the number of obviously kid-run YouTube channels with children under 13 who are not only browsing but posting content, and also the fact that there is advertising specifically targeting a young audience that shows up on YouTube. If you have watched kid-friendly content, your advertising starts showing up as very young audience targeting. And so they believe that indicates that YouTube is fully aware that they are ignoring this law, and have gone to the Federal Trade Commission to complain.
So here's what I don't get. Okay, so we're talking about COPA, right?
Uh-huh.
So I remember I was working at About.com when COPA came into law and was being considered, and it caused, at our job, it caused them to have to put up some extra disclaimers and things, just make you sign up for things like the chat rooms and the forums that they had and things like that, because, hey, You have to be, 13 or older to sign up. But here's the thing. I mean, who's to know that you're 13, that you're actually 13 and older? I mean, are you going to get ID from everyone? But the other thing is with YouTube, now here's what I don't understand about COPA is that my understanding was 13 or older for them to collect information on you and sort of let you publish things, I guess. But to be a passive observer viewing YouTube videos, I don't know if that's really covered under COPA.
So long as they're tracking your browsing history by IP address, they're still tracking information about a child's behavior online.
But they don't know it's a child's behavior unless someone is signed up as a child.
Which will obviously be the argument that will happen with the FTC in this case, because obviously YouTube's going to say, if they haven't signed up, we have no way of knowing whether they're a child or not. And this coalition of 20 plus privacy groups that have filed this complaint are going to say, if you don't believe that children under 13 are using your service, then why do you have ads targeting children under 13?
I have the answer.
Okay.
So this is a very common circumstance, which is a very common circumstance. My son is 6. I do not allow him to surf YouTube by himself.
Sure.
Right? I don't know what he's going to find there. But he believes that there is a video of every possible thing that he might want to see. So, like for example, with these robots, he's like, show me a video of someone playing with the Dash robot and using it with Star Wars toys or something like that.
Okay,
and I'm
sure.
like, I don't think such a video exists. But he'll have me go and search for it, and we'll
Sure.
be, or any sort of toy that he wants is like, show me a video of it. So I will begrudge him, and I will go on a device that has YouTube, like my phone, or our TV, and search for that with him there.
Sure.
And put the video on for him, and occasionally I'll let him go and click on one of the related videos or something like that. So is that targeting children? I mean, I was in the driver's seat. I searched it for him. I'm sitting there with him. He watched it. But who was the viewer that's being tracked, me or him?
Right. The fact that you're sitting there with him would probably constitute parental approval.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is, can you blame Google for putting I think that's a legit use of having kid-friendly ads.
I totally agree.
If your parents are supervising you, let's say, and you're watching YouTube under those circumstances, I mean, we have kid-friendly ads on Sunday morning on cartoons, right?
Sure.
You have kid-friendly ads on children's programming.
Sure.
So what else is new? People advertise to children. And why is that tracking if they're giving you kids ads? I mean, if you're someone who watches child-friendly content, then you might want to watch these child-friendly ads.
Absolutely. I am totally with you. I think that the argument is doesn't quite hold water. I can understand how they got to it. If you look at the concept a little skewed, I can understand how they get there. but I don't necessarily agree with them.
Also, who's to say that an ad is designed exclusively for children?
Right.
Like, even if it's an ad for toys, maybe I mean, this is highly unlikely that I'm looking to buy more stuff for my son, but I'm just saying, like, it's possible an adult could see it and be like, I want to buy that for my kid.
Sure.
So,
absolutely.
Rather than a kid saying I want it. So,
or themselves. There are adult toy collectors and stuff.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on what it is, So,
sure.
But anyway, yes, it's not a foregone conclusion that the ad you think is child friendly only works for children.
Right. I'm totally with you on that. This will be. I think this is going to be a fight that YouTube actually wins in the end. And I don't necessarily think that this coalition totally believes their own argument. If you read the letter, which we have linked on the website at PLUGHITZlive.com, if you read the letter, it's not 100% convincing that they necessarily believe their own argument. It might be that this is their way of bringing up a topic in a way that they knew would get media play. And being as one of the probably the lead organization of this little coalition is an organization called Commercial Free Childhood. It's probably more about making noise and bringing up a topic. Like, half the people who run for president in the beginning of a campaign season, almost none of them actually want to be president. They just want to bring a topic into the conversation. This might be that same kind of thing, and they were hoping that you and I would talk about it this week.
Yeah, so we did.
And
unfortunately, you can't escape commercialism. It's very hard to, as a parent, I'm just telling you, it's very hard to escape commercialism from kids and kids wanting stuff. It's kind of the nature.
Yeah, and especially if you're using the internet, it's not like, we've talked about it a lot. It's not like the internet is free for no reason, because all of this content costs a lot of money. Content costs.
Yep. I mean, couldn't you get an ad-free experience with like YouTube Red or something? So
sure.
So, you could see ads, pay for YouTube Red.
There's a way to do it. Absolutely. Totally agree.
Or keep them off of YouTube.
Right. If you don't agree with their policies, don't use the service. I think that's the basis of a free economy. And that is our show. Thank you for joining us. If you joined us live, f5live.tv/join us. Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can go there and chat with us in the chat room and give us your input on the topics as we talk about them. We always appreciate that. If you did not join us live, that is okay. You can also subscribe by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe, and there you will see all of our shows, F5 Live and The Pilch Point, and a bunch of other series as well. Next week, I believe we have a normal show, and then the week after, I believe we are in New Orleans. Let me look at a calendar. Yes, so we will be traveling in 2 weeks, so that show will probably not happen, considering we will have 32 or more hours of live coverage the next 4 days. So you'll definitely want to follow that at collision.live. You can see all of our other content, of course, at PLUGHITZlive.com. And with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you guys back next week. Ciao.